Hey Morgan, how you doing?
Good, sweetie. How are you?
I'm good. I'm really good. Welcome back to Getting to After. We're so excited that you're here for this series, Overcoming Silence, Resilience, and Rediscovery After Domestic Violence. As always, we want to give you a little disclaimer. Please do, for your own safety, um, put your kids away. This is mommy time. Put your headphones in because we are going to talk about some pretty sensitive topics today, some pretty difficult subjects. Um, this is, of course, Domestic Violence Awareness Month. And my name is Chateau Morrison. I am the Princess of Positivity. And my co host, Morgan, who is a survivor of domestic violence for many, many years. I like to call her a victor because everyone says victim, and I don't like that word. I think victor sounds better. You know what I'm saying? Because she's still here. Um, First, I have to tell you that if you've missed, there's been 3 episodes before this one. This is episode 4 in this series. There is a particular playlist that you can go to so you can get all of these. Getting to After is not all about domestic violence, but because it's National Domestic Violence Awareness Month, we really felt it was important to talk about this. And right, Morgan, we've been wanting to do this for a long time.
It's been a year.
It's been a
It was
long time
it
coming.
was legit last November when we were down in Georgia. We were in Atlanta, right? Oh yeah, we were in Atlanta because I remember we had made some videos outside of the conference,
Yep,
post like how we had finally caught our vision.
yep, yep. And it was
Now,
even before that because in August we talked about it, and remember we tried to do a little snippet of a video up in that hotel room
oh
in
yes,
Dallas with Cherie, with the silent partner
the
Cherie,
silent
and we realized that we weren't ready. So
uh,
we had all our lights up, we had all the, all the cameras and everything, and it was like, whoa, okay, this is not the time for that just yet. So yeah, so please do subscribe and share this with people because this is important. It's really, really important. And I just, I'm so proud of you, Morgan. I know this has been tough. I have to be honest, even today, listeners, prepping for this particular episode was hard. Pressing the record button on this particular episode was hard. Both of us may look a little watery in the eye because we've been crying today. Because this one is hard. This is some hard stuff we're talking about. Um, but we want to start with a win you had because I know you did something pretty dynamic last week.
Oh my word, yes. Okay, so I had the privilege of being able to go and speak at a domestic violence awareness event here in Winston. So it's downtown Winston at the Family Justice Center. And because of all the work that I do with Eliza's Helping Hands, which is the shelter, they asked me to be a guest speaker, one of the survivors. And so that was the most amazing moment. Like, I can't even begin to tell you, like, I ain't gonna lie, I was a little scared. I was a little nervous, right? Because, like, my nerves that's my first time doing a public speaking event on this,
Wow.
right? Like, I do public speaking all the time. I'm not worried about that. I got that. But telling
Wow.
like, speaking my truth and telling my story, that was different. But it was such a powerful moment because, out of all the people that were there, it was only myself and another woman that went up to speak, and the woman that went up to speak was, the sister of a deceased woman,
From
s
domestic violence.
domestic violence. So
Yeah.
she was telling her sister's story for her. She made a foundation and all that jazz, and, like, it was wonderful to hear her pursue, um, not pursue justice, but to be able to speak her truth, to be able to help bring awareness to everybody, to
Yeah.
what's going
Yeah.
on, you know?
Wow. Yeah. And it's so funny because I know that we're getting so much positive feedback. So again, please do like, subscribe, and share. Um, to Getting to After. We'll talk a little bit later on. You can see in the description box some of the other resources that we have available for women, whether they're in a domestic violence situation or not, or whether they're just a woman in midlife trying to get through all of this. We do talk a lot about emotional freedom technique and core energy coaching and some wellness coaching. And there's going to be lots of episodes about things that are really for that woman who's like at that cusp of moving into 40 and beyond. And but at the same time, we women, we have an opportunity to really support each other, and sometimes we don't. So, of course, Morgan, we've gotten some negative feedback, some strange things people have said about us, and we're okay to bring it on. But not understanding why we're doing this, and for those of you, I'm not going to talk to you. If I'm not listening to you. We're not listening. But the reason why it's so important is because of that. We're talking about something that's so deep and difficult, and right away, people wanna throw a wall up, they can't handle it, but you lived it,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know?
That's a really good point, and to be quite honest, since last week, I just wanna throw this out there and say this, like, I am terrified about not getting things in a chronological order, right? I'm so scared because I don't ever want somebody to question or doubt my truth, right? And
Yeah.
so because of that, like, it's really been in the back of my head, but then I realized, Chaton, dude, I realized that that was my brain protecting myself.
Yes. Yeah.
I was like, "Why can't I figure this out?" And then so I even went to the extent of, like, going back through my pictures and my log of my pictures to try to put things in order, and then I was like, my brain still wasn't able to work everything out, and I was like, "Man, this is art." It's powerful,
Isn't that it's
body,
gorgeous. That's your
right?
gorgeous mind.
Like, make saying like, "Well, honey, like, we're gonna just keep you, like, right here, we're gonna
Yeah.
protect you, put a
Yeah.
bubble around you
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
we're gonna keep that tucked for a second,"
Yeah.
you know? So I
But
just
I
want.
mean, I love that because, I mean, let's face it. So you may be in a domestic violence situation, or you may be transforming, transitioning out, or be out. You're maybe in your after period, and some things like I can't remember exactly, and I know that that is something that makes people not believe you. So listen, everyone, listen, I'm listening. This is us, right? We're letting other people pay attention, but this is me and you, and I believe you. I believe every word. I always did, even
Thank you for
before I
saying
met you. Yeah, every
because that.
single word.
Well, honey, that was part of the trouble too, was him constantly telling me that nobody was gonna believe me if I told him anything. You know what I mean? To the extent of, um, there was a lot, like, he would purposely, like, set me up to fail. He would put me in situations, um, he would just
Well,
do some, like.
well, and I think, I mean, I know it's hard sometimes, and don't. I never look. We are really doing this. For those of you who are listening, our podcast is gonna be a little bit different than this. This is just really important. This is one of these things that we knew we had to do. But I know that, Morgan, there's a difference between physical scars and emotional scars. I mean, and
Yeah.
sometimes the physical scars, people are like, oh yeah, I know that that happened to her. She always has a black eye and she wears sunglasses a lot, right? But there's those emotional scars or those hidden scars that no one sees, like those people, like you said, the first time he hit you on the arm, well, you can cover that, right? But when he hits you again and he's hitting you in your face, that's a little bit more difficult to cover. And I'm sure there's other things.
Well, yeah. So, like, one thing that he would do in order to keep me in fear, in that constant fear, is he would put substances in my food and he would poison me. And then he would do it when we were out in public so that he could take like compromising pictures of me in public places to be like, look, this is, and then use it to threaten me. Well, if you go to the judge or if you go to the police, I'm going to show them this and this, and it makes you look this way, kind of thing. And I will never forget the one time it was really, really bad. And we were just about to leave town, and we were at Taco Bell. I went and got my drink. I set it down on my table, and then I got up to go to the bathroom. And I come back, and my youngest daughter was looking at me, and she was like,
Mm,
I
mm,
didn't
mm,
think
mm,
anything
mm.
of it. And I'm drinking it, and I was not okay after that. That was like one of the worst times that had happened. But he would specifically do that to create this narrative of
Absolutely.
psychotic, make it look like I was drunk or that I was on something or, she's doing XYZ kind of thing to manipulate me, um, so that I'd be terrified to ask for help.
Right.
So I'm scared to tell my truth because then he's like, well, look at what I have on you. You know
Right.
what I mean? So I just want women out there to understand, like, we know that this could possibly be happening to you, and our hearts are like, my heart hurts for you because it's terrifying. It's absolutely terrifying when you're going through this, but there's
Yeah.
still a way out. I
Yeah.
need you to take that deep breath and like just take that step and set up, start getting yourself prepared
Yeah.
mentally. You can take
Yeah.
the steps needed to.
Well, I don't know if you're ready to talk about this, but we promised we would in this episode. I know this is the tough stuff, when you actually decided I'm leaving, um and the reasons why, and then what did you do, and how, obviously you're here, you're safe, you're after, and you mentioned your husband was deceased a couple of times. So why don't you just kind of look, we don't want to get too like we try not to cry today, guys. You've already
We
cried
cried enough
earlier.
early.
Oh, we already cried. um, why don't you take us through what happened?
Um, so where did we leave off last time? That would kind of help.
Well, I know that you had said you'd left. You'd gone one time to your mom's and you went to a shelter. We were talking about how many times it takes a while to leave. But I know there was, I mean, there's years of abuse. There's years that you went through, years of being um, now you're selling drugged. There's years of being battered. There's years of being in fear, of manipulated, of gaslighting, of being trapped in your home. I mean, I know there was an incident with your boys that was like precipitated you saying, enough is enough. I've got to get out of here. And you
Mhm.
started to tell us about that last week, but I know there was other times because of course I was in there with you, not there, but I know that, I know you went back a few times and things like that, but there was an incident so that people understand, like when you have that breaking point, what happened?
Well, there was multiple times that he was hurting me, but also my oldest son. And so, like over the years, what that looked like was a couple of like his ankle twice, his wrist twice, and then he broke his collarbone. The last time that that really, really hit, like literally, like physically hit, like he had a concussion. He gave him a severe concussion, right? And that was like, okay, I can't, like I just can't. Like, we had no choice but to leave. So between that and then what was leading up to that with the youngest son and him starting to put hands on and feet on him,
Oh,
like,
really?
oh
Okay.
yeah, yeah, that one was heavy. That one was really heavy. Like, I will, yeah. So with all of that happening, it was just escalating to the moment where we had no choice but to take ourselves out of the equation and remove ourselves from the area. Throughout that process, there was just so much happening, and it was, like, all on top of each other. It was, like, right next to, like, one day after the next, after the next, after the next. So, like, I really that's where I struggle with, like, getting the order of things right. But because of the schedule, remember I told you us having to be,
Mhm,
like, every hour, 30 minutes accounted
mhm.
for? At one point, I ended up getting in a car accident, and I was really, really ill. And this is takes place, like, right before we escaped, okay?
Okay, okay.
So the timeline for that, my body was shutting down, between it was basically like, dude, my nervous system was shutting
Yeah,
down,
absolutely.
and so I
And I
could
know that you have, you haven't mentioned it because, you and me, we troopers with these chronic illnesses. I know you have a chronic illness on top of it, like serious, like not a joke.
yeah, so I have fibromyalgia and chronic fatigue, and then on top of that, I have, severe brain trauma from all my concussions. So with all of that together, it makes every day a daily battle. But so what was leading up to that is I ended up having, like, a really bad episode one night, um, and the kids didn't know what to do, so they called dad, right? So they
And
called
so this was at this point you were living
in
'cause
my own place.
in another place. Okay. So you had escaped to the point where you had your own place.
Yeah, yeah, dude.
Yeah.
So, I moved us into our own place. I was doing work on the property in exchange for off
Mm.
rent because of being a commercial and residential contractor. Like, I had that life experience, so I was able to barter.
Y'all, do you hear that? I want to make sure you hear that. I want you to hear not only is she a commercial contractor, okay, don't mess with Morgan. But the other thing too is that sometimes it feels like I don't have the money, I don't have the funds, I don't have the resources. What do you have? What can you use? So I remember that when you moved to that house and you were like, I pay this little, it was a house, like a corner house with this small rent because you were able to use the resources that you had and they had a need. And so that bartering, I love that. Go ahead. Sorry to cut you off.
Oh, no, so that worked out really, really wonderful for me, to be able to use my skill set to be able to help take care of my kids because I didn't have the finances to that amount, that level that we needed, right? But, my body had shut down that night, and so the babies called their dad because they didn't know who else to call. And when that happened, my body so basically what my episode looks like is like my neck will start shaking,
Mm,
my speech will start slurring. I'll be looking at you, but nothing's like processing because I'm really trying to focus on what you're saying. Then my neck will start twitching, and then I'll drop to the floor, and it looks like I'm having like a grand mal seizure, right?
wow.
So
But
that
you're not.
I'm not. It's my
Wow.
it's literally my nervous system shutting down because of the amount of stress that I'm under. So what happened is, their dad came, and I will never forget, like, the feeling of him scooping me up, because when he scooped me up and picked me up, and he looked at me, and he's like, "I got you now," right? As when he said that, I just remember, like, my head going back because I could not move. I was, like, trapped in my own body. And so then he took me back to his house, and at that point, this next section is over a period of 3 weeks, right? I'm like in and out, like remembering things and not being coherent and like being sick in bed, like sick, sick, sick in bed, to the point where Emma and Papa would come and get the kids and take them to school. Because when I was living in the house, I had put them in school, had them taking care of that whole shebang. So
Mm-hmm.
Emma and Papa would come and get during this 3 week period. They came and got the kids because I could not leave the bed. So
And you, who even knows? Maybe he was
that's what I
putting.
was about to
Mhm.
say. That's what it was. He was giving me things so that I could not take care of myself, and so I could not leave. So, um, so when all that happened, that's what led up to, after that 3 week period, March 28th. I had to go. It was the craziest thing ever. I had to go. Remember, I was always having to go to the doctors and to the
Mhm.
hospitals and stuff like that because I was always sick, and they could never figure out what was wrong with me. There's like nothing's wrong with you, but I was like, there was one time I was hospitalized for like 3 weeks. They did every test imaginable, couldn't figure out what was wrong with me. So I went to the neurologist. I went to another city about an hour away. I went to the neurologist, and I remember a conversation that I had with my friend, and he just, he looked at me and he's like, "Mo," he's like, "What happened? What happened? Like, what happened to you?" He's like, "I haven't seen you in decades. Haven't seen you in decades." He's like, "What happened to that ferociously fierce fighter that used to like box me in the ears as when we were kids and like wrestle around?" He's like, "I need you to tap into that person." He's like, "I need you to find here." He goes, "Because your kids need you." He's like, "If you don't leave, you're gonna die." And I just clearly remember that moment. So then while I'm at the neurologist, my oldest son is texting me and he's like, "Dad's home." He goes, "Please hurry, please come back. He's not
Mhm.
happy."
Mhm.
And I remember being anxious because I was still an hour away. I'm like texting my son, and I said, "Just take the babies and go into your sister's room upstairs, the one we were always in, your oldest sister's room." I was like, "And I'll get there as soon as I can." So um I remember I remember like praying the whole way home because it was a moment where I was like terrified because I didn't know if I was gonna walk out of there the way I wanted to walk out of there, you know? Um, so I just remember, like, I'm backing in, I'm pulling in, I see his truck backed in, and I didn't pull all the way in the driveway, I parked at the bottom of the driveway, and I remember walking in, and it was the craziest thing ever because he's standing at the he's standing at the end of the table, I mean, the end of the counter where he always worked on his computer, and I remember seeing my youngest daughter come out, and she looked at me, and I was like, "Okay." So she went downstairs to get her brothers, and it was the weirdest moment ever, the weirdest moment ever. I was so calm,
Mm. Mm. Mm.
like, a calmness came over me,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
To the point where I wasn't scared of him, I wasn't shaking, I wasn't nervous, I wasn't stuttering, there was nothing. I went into my oldest daughter's room because I walked that direction so I could try to get something, right? He followed me in there, blocked me in the door, and I turned around and I looked at him and he's like, "Where were you? What were you doing?" I said, "You were on FaceTime with me the whole time. You know where I was at. Like, you know what I was doing. You know what you have my locations. You know what I was doing." And then I looked at him like dead in the eyes and I started laughing.
Mm.
Started laughing.
Mhm.
That wasn't good because when I'd laughed previously, that was an issue. But I started laughing and I said, "You know what, dude? You told me if there ever came a day where I was, man enough and strong enough to turn and walk away and leave everything, then to tell you." And I said, "You know what? Today is that. Today is this day. Today is the
Yeah,
day."
that I remember. Oh my god, I remember
Right?
that.
Right? I was like, "Today is the day." I said, "I'm done." I said, "I'm not doing this anymore." I said, "You don't have power over me anymore." I was like, "This is enough." I was like, "I'm done with this." And I was laughing. That's all I remember is like laughing hysterically. Like just like this. I was like, "I'm done, dude. Like, I'm done." The look on his face was when he shifted into one of his other personalities. He shifted into the younger personality, the kind one that was the kind personality. And he looked at me, and I will never forget because he looked at me, he's like, "But why? I don't understand. Why are you leaving?" Right? And so I started going through the list. I said, "You know what?" I said, "I've been doing this for as long as I physically can." I said, "It's I don't even remember all the words I said, but the look on his face sh like reiterated to me that he did have those 3 different personalities that I was working with. You know what I mean? Because he shifted into that one. And then he went into the room across and he sat down and he was looking at me. He's like, "Wait, just talk to me about this." And I said, "I've been talking to you for over a decade. I've been reasoning with you for over a decade. I've been crying and pleading with you for over a decade." I said, "I can't do this anymore." At that moment, my youngest daughter, like I'm in the hallway, he was in my youngest daughter's room. And so my youngest daughter comes up. She has her backpack, her notebook, and her shoes. And she's like, "We're ready." And I said, "Okay." And so I took my arms like this. I'm like walking, and it was crazy. Like it was all in unison. So I'm walking down the hallway. I go like this to put my arms around her to protect her because he's still behind me now, right? The boys came walking from downstairs up at the same time, kind of like a mama hen, like
Yeah.
and I'm walking out the door. Um, we walk out the door. He he wasn't following like he normally did. Like, he wasn't on my heel yelling and screaming at me and talking, like, there was a distance. Like, there was that distance, and he's like, "Please, please don't go." And I said, "I
No.
we can't." I said, "We can't."
So
Right?
how long do you think the time between when that was happening to, because I remember you saying that, I don't know, you took the car that time or I know you left with hardly anything. So walk us through, like, because just giving hope, like you walked away from a mansion, like a huge
House.
house, gorgeous, custom everything.
Mhm.
Was any of that in your mind what you were walking away from?
The only part that I was concerned about is how am I gonna provide for the babies? Like, that was it. The fact that this was the only home that they had ever known, and so that really meant a lot to me too, because growing up, I moved around a lot, like, a lot, and we financially didn't have anything, so, like, I was hungry most of my childhood,
Mm,
right? Most of my memories are being hungry, and so the fact that my kids always were in the same place, and the fact that there was always food in the refrigerator and pantry because both of us grew up hungry. So that was one thing we agreed on is like food is never going to be an issue for these kids. So that was, also a huge reason as to why I stayed because of the
mhm.
what my own traumas, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Um, so but walking away from it, yeah, like, we walked away, we had the vehicle for a minute. It wasn't even, like, a week before I had to ditch that because it had the OnStar on it, and
So when he would go from, I mean, you know for sure that he had some psychosis, but everyone doesn't know that that's what's going on. So, he could snap in and out, right?
Mhm,
So now, I mean, you're out, you're free, but not free.
mhm,
You're free, but not free.
right?
I think that, I think we should just stop right here for a second. I think we should stop for a minute and take a little breath. Um, I definitely want to, I think it's important for people to hear, okay, so now you're there, you're in your car, you're out of your car, you're ditching cars, you're escaping, you're
Mhm,
told us last week about never coming back to a city and things like that. And I really want them to hear the end of this. And I'm on the edge of my seat, even though I knew some of it. During this time, there was a period of time that you disappeared from my life for almost a year. So let's pick up. We're going to do part B. Let's pick up because I don't want to miss anything. And I want to make, I'm so hearing some of this. Of course, we didn't talk about all this because it wasn't safe for me, right? And you're always protecting everybody. But I want our audience to hear it. So guys, we're gonna pick up. We're gonna pick back up right here. We promise we're not gonna leave anything out. And then at the end of this episode, you'll really be able to see the bravery of this woman who's my co-host, the way that she handled herself as a single mom, the way she's been handling herself, and the way that not only did she get herself free and solvent and safe, but what mothering looks like on the other side, what mothering looks like in the after journey. Are you game for that, Morgan?
Oh, absolutely.
All right, all right. All
Is
right,
that
guys, we're going to see you soon. We're going to be back. We're going to be back.